Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today I'm going to show you how to draft this sleeves pattern. You can use this as a guide to take your measurements. The first thing you're going to do is to place your pattern on fold. So all I'm doing is just marking out 1 inch from the top end of my pattern paper. You can use ½ inch. This is just to create a line for where our pattern is going to start. First off, I'll draft the short sleeve first, and after that I'll go on to draft the long sleeve pattern. I'll label this as our top line. So from the top line, I'm going to be marking the depth of our bicep. This is usually between 4 to 5 inches. So I'm using 5 inches. So this line now is my bicep. So now mark the length of your sleeve. I'm using 9 inches. You can make it shorter or longer. It depends on what style you're making. You can make it longer. It depends on who you're making for. So my length is 9 inches. So you can use less or more. So this is the length of our sleeve. From the side on fold, this side, we're going to come in by 4 inches. So from your top line, come in by 4 inches and mark the point. On the bicep line, we're going to be marking the bicep measurement. The bicep measurement I'm using is 12 inches. I'll divide it by 2, which is 6 inches plus 1.5 inches allowance. So that's a total of 7.5 inches. So on the top line, remember that point that we marked 4 inches. Beneath it, we'll measure it, which is going to give us 5 inches. So we'll divide that point by 2. Mark the midpoint. So now we're going to be using our French curve. So we start our curve from the top line, then to the midpoint that we just marked, and then to the bicep. So using my French curve, I'm going to connect my top line to that midpoint that we marked, and I'll stop. So I'll flip my curve around, making sure that my French curve is aligning. So now I'm going to connect the midpoint straight to my bicep using the French curve. Guys, if you don't have a French curve, don't be afraid to use your bare hand to draw the lines. You can. So now I'm going to be marking my sleeve width on my length. So my sleeve width is 10 inches. So divided by 2 is 5 inches plus 1.5. So I'm going to be marking 6.5 inches on the length of my sleeve. And I'll use my ruler to connect my bicep to my length, to the length of my sleeve. I'm just going to use my marker to highlight the lines. So I'll measure the total of my armhole curve to make sure that it's equivalent to the body armhole measurement. So you measure it, make sure that it's accurate, and don't forget we added 1.5 inches for sewing allowance, so put that into consideration. Now I'm just going to go ahead and cut out a short sleeve pattern. I mentioned in the beginning of this video that before you start, place your pattern paper on fold. Place it on fold, don't forget. So this is what our pattern looks like. So if I should spread it apart, you could see how nice the short sleeve pattern is looking. So that's the end of the short sleeve pattern. Moving on to the long sleeve pattern, I folded my paper into 2. So now I'm just marking out my top line. So I'm using about 1 inch for my top line. I'm just going to mark the depth of our bicep, which is 5 inches is what I'm using. Remember, you can use 4.5, you can use 4 inches depending on how tall whoever you're drafting the pattern for is. Now I'm going to be marking the length of my elbow. So mine is 12 inches. Remember, this is not a fixed measurement. Check your measurement. So now from the top line, I'm going to be marking the length of my sleeve. So I'll mark the length of my sleeve and then create a horizontal line. From the folded end of your pattern paper, mark in 4 inches. So I'm just going to come in by 4 inches. So on your bicep point, you're going to divide your bicep divided by 2 plus 1.5 for sewing allowance. So on our top line point, remember that 4 inches, we'll measure below it, which is 5 inches. That's the depth, and then divide it by 2 equal parts and mark that point just like we did on the short sleeve pattern. So you mark the point. Again, we're going to be using our French curve to create our armhole curve from the top line to the midpoint and then connect the midpoint to the bicep. So remember that if you don't have this French curve, you can use your hand to trace the curves. Just be firm while you're drafting your curve with your bare hand. So now I'm going to make sure that my armhole curve is equivalent to what I have on my body measurement, so plus the 1.5 inches sewing allowance. If it's not enough, you can add or subtract. So now I'm going to be marking my elbow measurement divided by 2 plus 1.5, which is what I've marked, and I'll connect my bicep to my elbow or my elbow to my bicep with my ruler. On the length of my sleeve, I'm going to be marking my wrist measurement divided by 2 plus 1.5. Remember that the 1.5 is our sewing allowances. So now I'm going to connect my wrist to my elbow with my ruler again. What I'm doing now is using my marker to highlight our pattern. So I'm just going to make it just look a little bit more obvious. So now I'm just going to go ahead and cut out my long sleeve pattern. So this is the long sleeve pattern and the short sleeve pattern that we've just drafted. Thank you for watching. So if you really enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Thank you. See you on my next project. Bye.